Well, let's back up just a second from the analogy. We've got to deal with these complexities, and just think about picking up on one of the points you made about the specific sourcing you're dealing with, maybe the countries you're dealing with, the opportunities. I think as you're trying to navigate these waters, we're hearing about the opportunity for companies to come in with systems that help them recognize and map their process, trade preferential agreements, understanding where customs and duty plays, and the opportunity to take cost out or gain efficiencies by having a good wealth of knowledge for dealing with your particular partners. Is that the case? I mean, is this really being leveraged to improve the cycle and the efficiencies?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's several large trade blocs across the world. The Mercosur in South America, the European Trade Union, NAFTA, the ASEAN trade bloc in the Far East. And each of those have excellent rules for trading internally. So if you need to be selling into those countries, very often you need to source out of those countries. And it's across those trade blocs where you get more tariffs, more paperwork that go on. But even inside the bloc, take NAFTA for instance, you have Mexico, the United States, and Canada. The trade tariffs have been lowered, the duties and tariffs have been lowered, but the paperwork to go from one country to the next is still there. There's still delays, there's still complexities with that, and that'll never go away. I mean, these trade agreements are strictly duties and tariffs that are being lowered in an agreement among those countries. So I mean, there's a lot of money, a lot of companies make decisions to put a manufacturing plant inside one of those trade groups just to avoid tariffs and duties for imports.
I think just to build upon that, I mean, I think that sometimes you get fixated on the execution aspect of it, right? So there's the the paperwork required and everything else as you're moving goods across borders. But I think some of the things that were just brought up in terms of preferential trade agreements and the implications of taxes and duties and everything else, if you're looking at it from an end-to-end process, I mean, a lot of that information should really be used at the front end as you're designing your supply chains and your networks and things of that nature, because like they always say, once you design your network, you're locking in a lot of those costs and a lot of that complexity and everything else. So really taking that in at the front end as you're designing where you're going to put your facilities, your manufacturing sites, how you're going to lay out your different transportation lanes and everything else. I think it's very important for companies to look at that at the front end, as opposed to just looking at it from an execution standpoint in terms of what they need to do to physically move the goods at the time of shipment.
Yeah. Well, I think Gabriel makes a great point there, because we think of it a lot on the execution side, but the strategic potential of understanding what you can do and how you work with the various trade organizations, understanding everything from duty drawback and free trade zones and all of that, and how they fit together, can help you make really strategic decisions about how you design your network.
Right. So I mean, there's an opportunity here to really improve your profitability if you can get your hands on, that sort of that fully landed cost equation, from end to end, understand these ramifications. Are people really able to, capture sort of the points along the way and really understand, each of the aspects? And I guess there are hidden costs as well as, the explicit costs of maybe the ocean transport and so forth.
Right. Well, the whole cost issue is interesting. I mean, we look at the historically procurement will make a decision based on the lowest manufactured cost, and logistics will make a decision based on the lowest transportation cost, and so on. And you may be sub-optimizing the whole as you try to optimize your own little piece of it. And so, looking for ways to kind of break down those functional silos, to have the different parts and components talk to each other, and really understand what the cost components are with some accuracy is really critical to making good business decisions.
I think part of the challenge with that is that the cost information doesn't reside in just one place. I mean, the thing about global trade is you have so many different parties involved. And that data to get that cost information, some of it is in your own system, but even within your own company, but some of it is the logistics department may know the transportation piece, the trade finance people may know what the duties and taxes are, your freight, you need to get that from your freight forwarders. So again, that cost information is in many different databases across many different parties along that whole from order to receipt process. And sometimes what a lot of companies find is that even the metrics that they have in place, they haven't, a lot of those costs are bundled together. So they have to go back and try to get some granularity on those costs and break up different line items to be able to see where the costs are coming from, and even more importantly, why are costs varying, either from seasonality issues or by lane issues, carrier, et cetera. So I think that's part of the challenge, is being able to consolidate all that information that's in so many different systems across so many different parties.
So there's really an impact for companies to really look at their IT capabilities and the infrastructure, and to bring some systemization together, so we don't have a situation where the purchasing agent is out there saying, I can outsource this goods, sort of at just the cost of the goods, but he doesn't have visibility to all of these other components. And so you want to make sure that you're making good strategic decisions in terms of your end-to-end goods fulfillment in view of all of these factors. It certainly seems like.
I think there's all the direct costs are fairly easy to capture. You know the cost of purchasing, the cost of shipping. The things that don't get captured are, if you've outsourced it to a third party, how much are you spending in your own infrastructure to support that third party? Another thing is expediting. If you have a very long supply chain, a lot of times there's expediting, and that becomes very expensive, and that is not in the standard costs of most companies. That's just never picked up.
And there's the cost of money, the cost of obsolescence,
that's right,
et cetera, et cetera. So you can make it as complex or as simple, and it's trying to find that balance of getting that accurate costing information.